There are thousands of collectors who insist that they owned one of the rarest action figures on the planet. They remember how and where they got it. They can describe it in vivid detail, opening it, playing with it, and losing the accessories. They speak with the authority of first-person experience, moments in their life that are so certain that no other explanation is possible, and yet it is not possible because that action figure was never produced. I'm Dan Larson, and this is Rocket Firing Boba Fett. After the box office success of Star Wars, Lucasfilm immediately began working on the sequel. Kenner Toys did the same, pulling as much reference material as they could for all the new aliens and heroes and villains. One of those villains had been kicking around in George Lucas's brain for a while, born from unused concepts for Darth Vader and a type of super stormtrooper. As the script for The Empire Strikes Back solidified, Boba Fett evolved from Darth Vader's white armor-clad lieutenant into a bounty hunter who was just in it for the money, but also because the Empire had the most money and Fett gets the job done, still standing right next to Darth Vader when stuff goes down against key rebellion representatives. The new look was a mishmash of gear indicating his technically independent status, his technically neutral morality, a dash of color, a cape, and a rocket-firing jetpack. Kenner Toys immediately recognized the play value of that rocket-firing jetpack, even if it was never actually used in the film. Kenner designers began mocking up prototype Boba Fett's from existing Star Wars action figure parts, fine-tuning the aesthetics while they figured out the internal mechanism that would need to be employed to make the rocket launchable and reusable. Some of these early prototype images actually made it into promotional advertising for the figure before it was even finished being designed. Firing toy missile technology wasn't new. Kenner certainly didn't invent that, and other toy manufacturers like Mattel were already putting it to work in their toy lines. After the success of Star Wars in 1977, Battlestar Galactica brought a similar flavor of space adventure to television in 1978. As Kenner did for Star Wars, Mattel had a line of action figures and vehicles ready to capitalize on all the space adventure excitement. Where Kenner used electronic gimmicks in several of their toys to emulate the laser lights and sounds, Mattel opted for button-activated firing missiles in their Cylon Raider and Colonial Viper toys. According to the Star Wars Collector's Archive at theswca.com, link in the description for this video, in December of 1978, the Consumer Product Safety Commission announced that there were 3 formal reports of children inhaling or swallowing toy missiles from Battlestar Galactica toys, with an additional 4 more reports still under investigation. Even though their Battlestar Galactica toys had passed all then-current safety regulations, Mattel put warning stickers on remaining warehouse inventory. However, that same December, a 4-year-old boy died after he accidentally fired a Colonial Viper missile into his mouth, causing asphyxiation. 1 month later, in January of 1979, Mattel recalled all of the missiles from the Battlestar Galactica toys and immediately redesigned the firing mechanisms so that the missiles could no longer be removed in subsequent releases. Long before that fatal December accident, Kenner had already tested an L-shaped trigger slot, then decided not to use it out of concerns that it was too easy to accidentally trigger the firing mechanism. They then experimented with a J-shaped slot that prevented the missile from firing as easily and made it further into production, but still did not result in a figure that Kenner could confidently release to the public. Given their production schedule and their obvious competitive market interest in the success or failure of Mattel's Battlestar Galactica, and the troubles they were running into designing their own rocket-firing mechanisms, and legal issues that could potentially arise from that if they didn't get it right, it is likely that Kenner had already decided to exclude the rocket-firing feature from their Boba Fett figure, despite investing in developing and promoting it. The December 1978 death of the 4-year-old was just a few weeks ahead of New York International Toy Fair 1979, where the Boba Fett figure was going to be showcased. There would have already been several prototypes and production samples available, but nothing completed to ship out to the public. Furthermore, the mail-away promotion featuring early Fett prototypes stated that the figure would not be available in stores until the promotional period ended at the end of May 1979. Before the figure ever went into production, Kenner made the decision to fix the missile in place and fill the space in the mold where the firing mechanism would have been, resulting in the familiar look of a missile that really seems like it should come out, but doesn't. Of course, there's no way to know for sure how many unpainted test samples of either the L or J slot version were produced. Some sources say it's less than 50, some sources have the number as high as 100. And while I attempted to find an international registry of rocket-firing Boba Fetts to determine the actual number of painted J slot figures that were in existence, there doesn't appear to be any such registry. Whatever the number is, all of those samples would have to have come directly from Kenner employees who technically should have destroyed them. If you're still in possession of one of those figures and wish to avoid any future legal entanglements, send your sample to the P.O. box in the description below as soon as possible. No questions asked. One carded sample, the piece that was actually shown at Toy Fair in New York in 1979, has been verified and featured on the January 6, 2016 episode of Pawn Stars. The seller was asking $150. $1,000? $150,000 is a lot of money, but it is the only known mock-up of a real rocket-firing Boba Fett on a blister card. Pawn Stars guy countered for $100,000, but the seller wouldn't budge and they were not able to complete the deal. After that episode aired, the owner put the figure up for sale on eBay for $150,000 with free shipping, and no one purchased it via that listing. And just a real quick point to the seller, if I might, if you're watching. I've sold a lot of stuff on eBay since I joined back in 1999, and I included 12 pictures when I sold a Happy Meal Transformer. You should consider adding more than 4 photos of the most sought-after Star Wars action figure on the planet. Boba Fetts that fired rockets were never put into production, they were never carded, and they were never shipped. Until 2010, when Hasbro recreated the figure with a new rocket-firing mechanism and released him as a mail-away promotion as part of their vintage collection line. You may think you had one, you may think you played with one, but I'm sorry to tell you that unless you have a relative who worked for Kenner in the 70s and stole one from the office, you didn't. Good news though, you have an A+ imagination and you were at the top of your Star Wars play back in the day. For now, Kenner's 1979 rocket-firing Boba Fett remains the most sought-after oddity in the Star Wars universe. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, subscribe if you aren't already a subscriber. Thank you to those who already are. Share this video with your friends. Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy if you're in the position to help the channel grow. And let us know in the comments below what your most vivid vintage Fett memory is, if you have one. Me, it's that time I collected 350 of them. I remember it like it was right now.
Cut.